So as most of my viewers know, I like to do a walk around of new cars as I purchase them. I've done it for many years, and today is going to be no exception. You are looking at a 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV. Chevy technically makes two flavors of this vehicle. They make the Bolt and they make the Bolt EUV. The EUV is a little bit bigger. It is considered an electric utility vehicle. It is fully electric and it has a range of about 250 miles. Now the EUV is not that much bigger than the Bolt. It's styled a little bit differently in the back and it does look a little more like a sports utility vehicle, but to be quite frank, it's not that much bigger. The main difference between the two vehicles really shines in the back seat. There's a lot more legroom in the back seat of the EUV as opposed to the regular Bolt. There's also a lot of legroom in the front seats. Chevy has done an amazing design making this feel a lot bigger on the inside than it really is. Now I want to remind you that the Chevy Bolt, in my opinion, is pretty much an entry-level basic electric car. They don't really cost a lot of money. In fact, the 2023 is going to sell for around $27,000 new, and that is without any incentives. I personally like to consider this car a commuter car, and that's because, well, it only does 250 miles on a charge, and albeit it does have a DC fast charge input, you can also use a standard charger as well, it still charges relatively slow compared to other vehicles on the market. Being capable of accepting 55 kilowatts of charge, it takes about a half an hour to charge it up to about 45% from zero. Then after that, it slows down, and it slows down to save your batteries. Lithium batteries don't like to be charged at a full rate consistently. As they get charged, it needs to taper it back. This means the next half hour will only get you to about 80%, and then to get the remaining 20% of that battery charge, it will take a lot longer. So knowing all this, you can very quickly come to the realization that this car really wasn't designed for a cross-country trip. It was designed as a commuter car. Commuter cars are what we use to go back and forth to work and to the grocery store and back. Now, using this as a commuter car, I have been very impressed with its efficiency. I travel about 84 miles to and from work every day. About half of that is on the freeway, the other half is in the country, and I've been averaging 22 kilowatt hours every day. To top this charge back off to full at my own house on my own electricity, it's costing me about $2.50. That is really cheap when you compare it to even the most fuel-efficient gasoline engine automobiles out there on the market right now. Now, as I said, the car itself in the front feels really roomy. There really is no shoehorn effect like some small cars give you. The Chevy Volt was the same way. In the front seat, it felt really roomy. It did not feel like a small car. And when I say that this vehicle is small, well, it's a little bit smaller than a Ford Escape. Sitting in the back seat is no exception. There is plenty of legroom. There was more legroom in the back of this car than my wife's Ford Escape. I will mention that the first one of these cars that I looked at before I ordered this one had the sunroof in it. And the sunroof is very cool. However, I have a very tall torso and the sunroof did cause my head to rub the ceiling. I'm sure most people would not have that problem, but for me, it was just a little bit too annoying to buy the sunroof, so I had to order it without that sunroof. I've also seen people complain that with the sunroof, the back does not have a lot of height either, but without that sunroof, there is plenty of height in the ceiling, even for a freakishly tall torsoed person like me. Now, being a compact SUV, there's not an incredible amount of storage behind the back seat, but there is quite a bit for what it is. There's even a second compartment underneath the floor of the rear compartment where you can stash some other items, maybe something a little more valuable that you didn't want anybody to see, but it also has a screen that hides everything in the back. So when you're looking through the windows from the outside, this blocks your view of anything that you might be storing underneath it, maybe a laptop or some important item that you don't want others to know is back here. Now, below the false floor and below the floor underneath that, well, it's another false floor, and that is where you can store your charger. This is the factory charger that came with the car. I don't use it because I use one that I already have installed at my house, but you never know when you might need one. Now, I will say with those back seats folded down, there is plenty of room to store large items in the back of this car. And with one last quick view of the back, you can see it is really comfortable. There's plenty of room and it's laid out really nice and it feels nice and plush. It doesn't feel like an economy car at all. It does have heated seats and a heated steering wheel. It also has air-cooled seats. That's right, it has a fan that blows through all the little holes in the leather and it keeps your backside and bottom really cool. It has a built-in spot to charge your phone. Whenever you slide your cell phone down inside this little cubby hole, it'll automatically keep it charged wirelessly. Speaking of wireless, it does also come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Both of them will work wirelessly. Back in the hole where the phone charges is a couple of ports. There's a regular 12-volt outlet over here, and then there's two different types of USB charging, USB-C and a standard USB. You can also use those for the CarPlay and the Android Auto if you don't want to connect wirelessly. The drive controls are a little bit weird, and that is because if you want to drive, you grab a hold of this little silver spot here and you pick up on it. That puts the vehicle in drive. If you want to park it, you do push down on the park button. But if you want to go in reverse, you lift up on this little spot right here and that'll put it in reverse. They're really easy to use once you learn how to operate it, but if you didn't know any better, you'd probably fumble around a bit until you figured it out. Climate controls are very straightforward and very easy to use. As you can see, they operate like any other set of climate controls. Now, the giant infotainment screen is a very nice feature. It comes standard with these cars, and Chevy's infotainment center has come a long way. It's very fluid, it works very well, it's packed full of features. It does have OnStar. I think all the cars have OnStar, and it also tells you a lot about your driving habits and how you're driving the car. Now, you can order this car with Super Cruise, and I did not order it with Super Cruise. There's a few reasons why. Well, first of all, Super Cruise costs a little bit of money. It also becomes a subscription-based option later on. It's free with the vehicle when you first buy it for a while, but then you have to pay for it. My problems are most of the roads that I drive on to commute do not have Super Cruise capabilities. Super Cruise is based on a GPS. It's based on roads that are approved. The roads I drive on, it just isn't available to me yet. So buying Super Cruise didn't seem like a worthwhile purchase for me. But what I did get was the driver assist option. And it's very similar. Basically, it figures out where each line on the road is using a camera behind the mirror. And if you start to go over the line, it will tug the steering wheel in the other direction and keep you in the center of the road. You can disable this if you're not comfortable with it, but you can also override it at any given time. So if it starts to tug you to the left and you force the steering wheel to the right, you can just override it. The outside mirrors are heated, and it does have blind spot indicators. So there's a little star in a car that you probably can't see in the camera, but it lights up orange when there's a car in your blind spot. Now, there are plenty of customizable options in both the infotainment center and your driving display. I'm not going to get into those because it could be a whole video of its own, and that's just not the type of videos I like to do. Now, there is no frunk with this car. A frunk is basically a trunk in the front. A lot of EVs have that, kind of like the old Volkswagen Bugs did. But unfortunately, Chevy chose to put all the electronics right here under the hood in the front. Now, that's kind of a pro and a con. It's easier to get to all of these components. They're not shoehorned in various parts in the car. It will make this car very simple to maintenance and service and repair. The downside is you don't have that storage in the front. Now, enough about the features, because there's a lot. You really need to do your own research if you're buying this car and find out what you'd like to order with your car or what you really want when you buy a Bolt EUV. But let's talk about the driving experience. The driving experience is really nice. The suspension is a little bit softer than the Volt, so it's a little more pleasurable to drive. The acceleration is really good for this car. The handling is really good. Most EVs are, because all of the weight is in the bottom of the car. The dash is extremely easy to look at and at a quick glance tell what's going on. As far as turning, steering, all that good stuff, it just drives like any other normal car. There's really nothing to it. You get in it, you turn it on, and you drive it. The interior is really comfortable. The seats are fine. They don't feel bad at all. And the seat I'm in is an 8-way electric seat, so you can really fine tune it for your body. As far as wind noise, there's a little bit of wind noise, but it's not bad. It's not as quiet as my town cars or my Cadillacs, but it definitely has some wind noise. I've had worse. Some of the cheaper cars are really bad, and I really think that the wind noise that you do hear is basically over amplified because there's no engine noise. So there you have my quick and dirty review of the 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EUV. For an entry-level electric vehicle, I think it's actually well worth the money. I think it's a great car, a great commuter car if that's what you're looking for. Now, I know electric cars are not for everybody, and they're certainly not going to fit everybody's needs, but comment down below what you think about electric vehicles. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Take a look at some of my other vehicles. At the very least, you might be entertained.